So now that all of our boards have been crowned, what we can do is we can start laying them out on our project here. AJ, you want to get our rim joists? It's real important, guys, when we take our rim joists that we don't flip them end for end. We need to keep them exactly the way they were when we laid them out. If we flip them end for end, then our floor joists won't be coming out straight. Now that we have our joists in place, or our rim joists in place, we can start taking all of our floor joists and just laying them out. Now, we're not gonna nail them right away. We just wanna get them in there. Crown up, crown up. So we have these guys roughly in place, and you can see we have our opening here, or half of our opening. We have the opening going the short ways. So we still have to lay out for our headers here going this way. The reason why we don't nail right away is we have this double trimmer joist right here. If you take a regular 16 penny nail here, it doesn't go through both of them. So we do want to just go through one of them. And we have to be able to nail through here. If we put this guy here, there wouldn't be any room to nail. And if we already put this guy here, we wouldn't be able to get to our header location. So what we'll do is we'll put these guys out of the way for a second. We'll put these guys out of the way for a second. And if you had a bunch of volunteers working, they could be nailing the side ones while you lay out this opening here. So what we're gonna do is, again, this opening is centered in this floor. So we have 8 foot here. You wanna hook on there? We're just gonna double check. We have exactly 8 foot. So Azad here is gonna hold on the end, and he's gonna push that floor joist nice and tight so we get an accurate reading. And we're gonna come in here. Good? Mm-hmm. We're gonna mark 4 foot. And then we'll do the same on this one. Good? Yes. 4 foot. All right, again, this is gonna be our center. So our opening, our rough opening was 3 foot by 4 foot. We laid out our 3 foot going the other way. This is center, and this is center. So now we're gonna lay out our 4 foot opening. So what we'll do with that, from this center line, we'll come out 24 inches. That's half of 4 foot. And then we'll come 24 inches this way. And just double check that real quick. All right, we got 4 foot. So this, again, if you remember from our layout in the beginning, we're gonna have a double header here. Then we'll want to transfer those marks to this guy too. For ease, I'll just move it over. Oops. All right, so we'll move this guy back over here. And AJ, would you mind grabbing those headers? So before the video here, we pre-cut these guys, and I'm gonna explain to you what we did here. So local code varies with whatever community you're in, but a good rule of thumb, whenever doing headers above doors or headers in floors or double trimmers, you want to do 3 nails on 2x6s, 4 nails on 2x8s, and you want to go every 8 inches. So you can see we have every 8 inches on here. You don't want to get too close to the ends, you'll split it out, so we'll come in a few inches. Also, you can't see it, I'll show you here in a little bit on our double trimmers, but there's construction adhesive in between here. That just makes for a really strong joint. So what we'll do, these guys haven't been crowned, but they're pretty straight. Zod and AJ, if I could have you guys hold that in place. And what we're gonna do, one tip before we get started. I mark them on the top, but just to ensure that your header is square, it doesn't hurt to just make one line down, just to give you a reference when holding it in place that you're nice and square. All right, so as they're holding it in place here, we're gonna take some 16 pennies. And again, this is why we didn't nail our double trimmers yet. And we're gonna come in here and nail these guys in place. All right, so you see I started the nail there and I just tapped it a little bit because you can always take the board back out or tap the nail back out. But you really want to make sure that this is nice and flush. That's going to become really important later when we start doing our floor sheathing. So I got it started, finished that guy off. And if you guys take a look in here, this is why that line becomes really important. You can see we're not quite square here. We're down a little bit here, we're flush here. But if AJ twists that to our line, now we're nice and flush on both sides. So we'll come back, nail this guy off, and then we'll do the same over here. Does that line look good? All right. All right, 2 nails isn't going to be enough for this. Whenever nailing 2x6s through the end, you want to do 3 nails, one right in the middle, one on the end, and one on both ends. So what I like to do is nail my top, then my bottom, and notice when I'm nailing here, I'm not going right on the edge. I'm coming in about 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm also going nice and center with the board here. So coming down here, nail this guy, and then I'll center one to finish. Then we'll finish here. Now if we take a step back here for a second and see, this is a really good way to get volunteers involved. I have Azad holding on one end, AJ holding on the other end, and then one person hammering. When working with volunteer groups, there's really no reason why you should be forcing anything by yourself when you have all that help around. Plus it keeps people busy. So now we can see that we have our rough opening completely framed here. So the next step that we're going to do is prepare our double trimmer to butt up against our first trimmer here. And again, like I said, with our headers, we put that construction adhesive in there. We're gonna do the same thing with our double trimmers here. So we have our adhesive laying around. All right, now it doesn't take much. I usually just do a real quick W. And it doesn't have to be a perfect bead, just to get some in there. All right, it's more than enough. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this guy and butt it right up next to this one. And what we wanna take our time and do, we have a pretty good match here. We're nice and flush all the way along here. But a lot of times we'll have one floor joist that doesn't match up exactly to the other floor joist. So the way to remedy that is to always start on one end. AJ, could you grab that box of 16s there? So what we'll do is we'll start on one end here and tack. I'll lay this guy down for now. And what we want to accomplish here is getting this flush and getting this top flush. So a really good trick is, do we have that quick clamp around? If you have a quick clamp or C-clamp or anything, you can really utilize one of these here by just clamping this in place and it won't move on you. Then we'll come in here and finish nailing that off. So if you guys noticed, when I was nailing at a little bit of an angle here. If you go straight in, one, you're gonna have a little bit of a nail sticking out here. It's not too big of an issue. It's not against code or anything. One, for finish work, a lot of times if this was a stairwell, you're gonna have nails sticking out and then that's gonna be in your way for drywall. It's just a pain, you have to bend them all over. But two, if you're walking in there, you could get your arm caught on it and it's just really annoying. So if you angle it a little bit, it doesn't come out. Secondly, you're gonna notice this row I'll nail in this direction, then this row I'll nail in the opposite direction. And once we get this all nailed off, that basically acts as a clamp and this will never separate. So just another really good reason to angle it. So what we'll do then is we'll just go ahead and keep going along here. Every so often bending the board, making sure it's nice and straight. All right, so here we can see this isn't really bad, but we're not perfectly level. If you're not watching your volunteers, a lot of times they'll just nail this, but it's a good idea to bring this back to square. If this was really, really bad, there's a pretty cool trick. A lot of times it's gonna be a little bit difficult to bend that board. So you can use a little bit of leverage. Whichever board is lower, you can pop a nail in it, coming down from the top. Then you can use your hammer to pry that board back up to nice and flush. Since we nailed those guys, that's all gonna stay nice and flat. You're only gonna bend this little bit. And then Azad has it nice and flush here. And then you can come back with a nail and keep it in place. And then you can either take that out or just pound it in. All right, so now we have our double trimmer. It's glued. and it's nice and flush. Everything so far has been nice and flush. So the only step left to do is nail it off. And again, we're gonna do 3 nails every 8 inches. And then we'll do exactly the same for this opposite trimmer. All right, so now that we have our opening framed, our next step, we're gonna take our rim joists that we laid out, we're gonna place them back up on the mud sill here, and we're gonna start nailing this all together. So bring that in. Get this guy back up here. Remember, if any of your joists fall off, to make sure you put them back so the crown's facing up. All right, so there's no real order here. We're just going to take all of our floor joists now and line them up with our layout lines. The only thing to really remember is our double trimmer here, making sure those guys line up. Everything else gets a normal floor joist. So we can start here in this corner. And again, we're gonna use 3 16 pennies through the end. So get it started. And again, we'll just get the nail started just so it's poking through. And then we'll adjust so we're nice and flush. Check for flush, and then finish it off. All right, so again, 3 nails, 1 top and bottom, and then split the difference. And when you're finished with the corner, your edge should be nice and flush, and your top should be nice and flush. So then what we can do is we'll go all along one edge and we'll nail all these guys off. So kind of like we were doing with this double header, I like to get the joist right in the middle of our layout and then nail that first nail. Make sure it's nice and flush and then continue to nail off. Remembering to check your line here to make sure that you're nice and square. So this is a great opportunity if you have volunteers. Everybody can pick a floor joist and start nailing. So you guys wanna start nailing as well? All right, so we have all of our floor joists in. We nailed them from both ends. Again, we are doing 3 16 pennies in each end. So the next step that we're going to do is we're actually going to attach the floor to our mud sills so we have a good connection. So in order to do that, we're gonna actually see all of our prep work that we did pay off with the mud sills. Since we took our time and got those mud sills nice and straight with our chalk line, we should theoretically be able to just take our floor here and shimmy it back and forth and get it nice and flush with our mud sills. Once we do that, we can then double check our diagonal measurements just to see if we're square. And we should be, since we know that our sills are square. So first thing we're gonna do, we actually need our hot dipped nails once again. So we're gonna come over here. And we got our hot dipped 16s. So what we're gonna do here is called toenailing. So what we do is instead of nailing straight down, we come in at an angle. And if you look through here, we'll kind of do a side view here. You'll see what happens when we come in at an angle. We'll come in and hit that plate and get a lot of the meat of the wood. So just to start, I'm gonna come in here and get it into the wood. Then I'm gonna bend it up, get it going a little bit more. And now I'm gonna focus on getting this right where I want it. So I'm gonna bring it out. And one little trick, when you're toenailing, there's a lot of pressure going on this wood from the hammer, and it's gonna keep shimmying over. So if you actually start it over just a little bit, as you nail, it's gonna nail into place and come out nice and flush. If you start out flush, it's gonna get really tight, and it's just gonna keep moving past your sill edge. And then there's really no way to bump it back. So start out just a little bit. And you can see as I hammered that in, now we're nice and flush. So we're gonna go about every foot all along this edge, or we can just say about every 16 inches, and toenail this down. Again, just make sure that you're using these hot dip galvanized nails because we're going into treated lumber. All right, so one important thing about toenailing is where you start the nail. It's real important that you don't start your nail right down on here in the corner. Two things are gonna happen. You're gonna split out this wood and you're not gonna have a very strong connection. Another thing that's gonna happen is you're just not gonna get a lot of meat of the wood, which also causes you not to have a very good, strong connection. So you wanna come up a good inch or inch and a half. Again, you can start that nail, bend it, and then drive it home. All right, so this is where some extra hands will be helpful. You can see we're starting to come in a little bit. If I nail this right now, it's gonna move more inwards. So if you have someone go out on the end, Azad will go out on the end, push it out. And it's okay if he pushes out more than flush out there, because that's gonna bring this flush. And then as we nail, that'll come back in. Yeah, a little more, Azad? All right, perfect. All right. All right, so now we have that whole rim joist nailed off, and if you sight down it, you can see we have a nice straight line.